The shoeshine boy is gone. The kid with the wooden box and the tin of Kiwi polish who used to work the chair at every barbershop, hotel lobby, and train station in America has disappeared so completely that most people under 50 have never seen it happen in person. But if you are old enough to remember, you remember all of it. The pop of the rag against leather, the smell of the paste rising off the shoe, the sound of two people talking while one of them worked and the other one sat still for 5 minutes in the middle of a busy day. That was the shoe shine, and for most of the 20th century, it was as ordinary as a haircut. Before we dive in, subscribe and drop a comment saying where you are watching from. Picture a Saturday morning in 1955. You are sitting in a raised leather chair at your neighborhood barbershop, the kind with a porcelain base and chrome armrests. You have just had a haircut and a shave. Before you get up, the barber nods toward the kid at the back. Shoeshine, you put your foot up on the brass rest and the boy gets to work. He is maybe 12, maybe 14, and he has done this 1,000 times. He lifts the lid on a wooden box that holds everything he owns in this trade: a horsehair brush, a couple of rags, and several small tins of Kiwi shoe polish in black, brown, tan, and oxblood. Each tin has that little boat cleat lever on top that clicks when you pop it open. That click is one of those sounds you either remember or you do not. And if you remember it, you remember it exactly. He starts with the brush, clearing the dust and the scuffs. Then he wraps a rag tight around 2 fingers, dips into the paste, and works it onto the leather in small, even circles. The paste has the consistency of lip balm, waxy and thick, and as he rubs it in, the smell rises up. Rich, dark, faintly chemical, unmistakably masculine. It smells like your father's closet, like the den on a Sunday night when he polished his own shoes in front of the television. That smell would settle into the rag and linger on your fingertips for the rest of the day, and years later, long after the last shoeshine stand closed, if someone opened a tin of boot polish near you, you would be right back in that chair. After the polish set, the boy picked up the brush again and buffed the shoe in long, steady strokes, building heat through friction, working the wax deeper into the grain of the leather. Then came the part that separated the kids who were competent from the ones who were artists. He pulled the rag tight between both hands, held it flat against the toe of the shoe, and whipped it back and forth in a rhythmic snap that sounded like nothing else on earth. The pop of that rag, fast and crisp and musical, was the signature sound of the trade. Some boys snapped it so hard people nearby would stop and watch. Others added a little shuffle, a step or two of footwork, turning the shine into a performance. A few could whip a shoe with a rag until it looked like a mirror. When he was done, he gave the sole a light tap, his way of saying finished, and you stepped down feeling like a different man. A haircut, a shave, and a shine. 15 cents for the cut, 10 for the shave, 5 for the shine. You walked out a new man for 30 cents. All a boy needed to get into the shoeshine business was the desire and a wooden box. Most of them built their own. You found a piece of scrap lumber sturdy enough to hold a man's foot. The more enterprising kids hand-carved a shoe sole shape from wood and mounted it on top of the box as a footrest for the customer. The rags came from your mother's scrap bag. The polish could be bought for 5 or 10 cents a tin, and a single tin lasted weeks. That was the entire investment. No storefront, no license, no adult telling you what to do. You picked up your box and walked the streets, calling out to every man who passed. "Shine, mister? Want to shine this morning?" In the Brooklyn neighborhood that Rose Leary Love described in her memoir Plum Thickets and Field Daisies, shoeshine boys were a constant presence on the streets. Boys of every shade bounced along the sidewalks with what she called the gay exuberance of youth, calling out in the eternal quest for nickels and dimes. Their fingers would greedily gouge out the paste, she wrote, vigorously apply it to a shoe, and then move the rag back and forth in a rhythmic beat that made the whole process look like fun. Business was best on Saturday evenings and Sunday mornings, when men had leisure time and wanted to look sharp for church or for visiting friends. In Fall River, Massachusetts, in the early 1960s, there were still 4 shoeshine parlors in town. The largest was the Academy Shoeshine Parlor in the Borden Block downtown, right across from the bus stop on South Main Street. A child peering through the window would see elevated chairs, men in suits and ties reading the Herald while someone below worked on their shoes. The bus traffic alone kept the business alive. 9 or 10 buses would line up along the curb, drivers spinning their destination signs, and every waiting passenger was a potential customer. Some kids took the trade into places that would have gotten them in trouble if their parents had found out. In that same city, a boy named Johnny built a shoeshine box and carried it into the neighborhood taverns. The bars were dank and dark, thick with the smell of stale beer and old tobacco, but the drinking men were generous and the tips were good. His younger friend tagged along as an assistant, handing over brushes and polish from the box. It was a clandestine endeavor. If their fathers had discovered they were loitering in saloons, it would have meant the strap. The economics of the shoeshine were simple, and they stayed remarkably consistent for decades. In the early 1900s, a shine cost 1 to 3 cents. By the 1920s and 1930s, the standard price was a nickel. By the 1950s, it was a dime. A man who got his shoes shined every day was spending about 50 cents a week, which seemed like a small cost for something that had become as routine as a morning shave. And for the boy doing the work, those nickels and dimes added up to real money. In a time when a kid's allowance might be a quarter a week, a good shoeshine boy could earn several dollars a day on a busy corner. James Brown started shining shoes on 9th Street in Augusta, Georgia at the age of 9. He earned 3 cents a pair and sang and danced while he worked. Decades later, the city renamed that street James Brown Boulevard, and the boy who had shined shoes for pennies owned the radio station in the same town where he had once knelt on the pavement. The shoeshine was more than a transaction, it was a place where people talked. A man in Washington, D.C., who started working beside his father at the age of 9 at a shoeshine stand in a food court on K Street, described the job this way after 30 years in the trade. Customers feel open to you, he said. They figure a shoeshine man has been through a lot, just like a barbershop man, and they feel you can help them with their problems. He had shined shoes for congressmen and federal judges. He remembered when some of those judges were fresh out of law school. One member of Congress had 2 houses, he said, one for his wife and one for his girlfriend. His father had taught him the first rule of the trade: do not share your personal stories with them. If they want to talk, you listen, but you do not have to share your own personal business. At Denver International Airport, a woman named Jill Wright built a shoeshine company called Executive Shine that became something more than a business. She had started at a Hyatt hotel in Denver. At the age of 20, she beat out 30 other applicants for a shoeshine contract at Reagan National Airport in Washington. Supreme Court Justice Byron White became a regular customer. One man told her staff that a conversation he had while getting his shoes shined had stopped him from taking his own life. Wright said something that could serve as the epitaph for the entire trade: "If I hung up a sign that said 'Love available here,' people would walk right by. But if we cover it up and call it shoeshine, that is the real secret to business." There is a famous story from Wall Street, October 1929. Joseph Kennedy, father of a future president, was getting his shoes shined when the boy started giving him stock tips. Kennedy reasoned that if shoeshine boys were recommending stocks, the market had become dangerously overheated. He sold his positions. Days later, the market collapsed. Whether the story is perfectly true or slightly embellished has been debated for decades, but it became one of the most repeated parables in the history of finance. And it tells you something about how present the shoeshine boy was in everyday American life, that he could serve as the central figure in a story about the entire economy. 2 world wars did more for the shoeshine business than anything else. Millions of men learned to polish boots in the military, where the spit shine was not optional, it was survival. You could fail an inspection for dull boots. Recruits spent hours building layers of wax on their toe caps and heels until the leather reflected light like glass. When those men came home, they carried the habit back into civilian life. A generation of veterans became a generation of loyal customers, and in barbershops and hotel lobbies and train stations across the country, the shoeshine trade flourished because the men in those chairs had spent years being told that how your shoes looked said something about who you were. What killed the shoeshine was not one thing. It was a series of changes that arrived slowly and then all at once. The first was the sneaker. Athletic shoes had existed for decades, but they were for the gym, not the office. That began to change in the 1970s, and it accelerated through the 1980s and the 1990s. By 2021, sneakers had become the largest footwear category in the United States. Global sneaker sales exceeded $80 billion the following year. Leather dress shoes did not disappear, but they stopped being the default. The second was the dress code. For most of the 20th century, the 3-piece suit was what a man wore to work. It was not a choice, it was an expectation. The loosening started in Silicon Valley, where khakis replaced wool trousers and spread outward through the 1990s. Casual Friday became casual every day. By 2024, even the CEO of JP Morgan Chase was photographed wearing sneakers. When the shoes changed, the shoeshine lost its reason to exist. You do not polish a pair of running shoes, you wear them until they wear out, and you buy another pair. The third was the disappearance of foot traffic itself. The same forces that killed the lunch counter and the downtown department store killed the shoeshine stand. Suburbanization, the automobile, the migration of daily life away from walkable streets and into malls and office parks, and eventually into the home itself. People stopped passing by the places where shoeshiners had always set up, and then came the pandemic. COVID did not start the decline, but it accelerated it beyond anything the trade could absorb. At Penn Station in New York, the owner of a shoeshine stand that had once served 80 to 100 customers a day was down to 30 on a good day after 2020. Across town, a man named Gyro Cardenas, who had run Alpha Shoes Repair near the Port Authority for 33 years, saw his revenue drop by 75%. He went from 3 employees to 1. At Grand Central Terminal, Leather Spa had once employed 6 shoeshiners doing 120 shines a day. After the pandemic, 3 workers handled 40 on the best days. The numbers tell the full story. The last time the United States Census listed shoeshining as a separate business category was 2007. Only 30 establishments were counted. The shoe repair market declined an estimated 23% between 2013 and 2023. Shoe polish sales fell by 29% between 2019 and 2022. S.C. Johnson, which makes Kiwi the most recognized shoe polish brand in the world, stopped selling it entirely in the United Kingdom due to softening demand. The airports and the major train stations are the last places where you can reliably sit in a chair and have someone shine your shoes. Everywhere else, the trade has simply ceased to exist. But what disappeared was not just a service. It was a particular kind of encounter between 2 people. The shoeshine stand was one of the last places in public life where a stranger would sit still for 5 minutes while another person worked at their feet, and in those 5 minutes, something would happen. A conversation, a joke, a confession sometimes, a moment of quiet in the middle of a noisy day. The boy, or the man doing the work, was not a therapist, a priest, or a bartender, but he occupied a similar space. He was someone you could talk to precisely because the relationship had no stakes beyond the shine itself. And when you stood up and walked away, you felt slightly better than when you sat down. And it was never entirely clear whether that was because of the shoes or the conversation. In McKinney, Texas, a man named Bruce Luster started shining shoes at the Palace Barber Shop in 1925 when he was 16 years old. The Palace had been open since 1892, the oldest continuously operating barbershop in Texas. Bruce stayed for more than 50 years before opening his own shop on McDonald Street, where he worked another 25 years. He retired at 98, he died at 100. The mayor of McKinney declared Bruce Luster Day twice, and the city named a street after him. He had spent 75 years popping a rag, telling jokes, and listening to the stories of men who came in for a shine and left with something they had not expected to find. That kind of presence does not get replaced by an app. It does not get replaced by anything. If this brought something back, if you remember the smell of shoe polish in a barber shop, or the sound of a rag snapping against leather, or if your father took you along when he got his shoes shined on a Saturday morning, I would like to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell us what you remember. Was there a stand in your town? Did someone in your family do this for a living? And if you found this worth your time, subscribing helps more people find these videos. The shoe shine boy is gone, but the chair where he worked and the conversation that happened in it was one of the last places in this country where two strangers could sit together for a few minutes and both walk away better for it.